it starts off with managing the supply chain strategy, and then you design the roadmap. And I'll come a little bit into why supply chain strategy has to be the first starting point. Okay, then you design the organization structure right around your roadmap. Now, when a lot of people, get a little bit, they ask me questions when I say, why do you design an organizational structure around a digital roadmap, right? So every part of your organization, whether it's HR, finance, marketing, sales, all use technology. And if you are not connecting the end-to-end dots of between all functions, through data, then your digital transformation has a very high likelihood of failure. So today, Forbes has come out with a research saying that 90% of digital transformations fail. And the reason for that is when you're not preparing the groundwork before you embark on a transformation journey, then you don't have all your ducks in a row. So I'll come to that in a little bit and talk about how we did that. Then you develop your master data, you design the network, and then you look at your procure to pay processes and your order to cash processes. Those are the typical two big process flows throughout an organization. And then you manage your supplier spend, your production, your logistics, and then you tie it all up through metrics. So that said, the primary goal of digital transformation, and very quick definition, I'm sure you talked about it all day today, but digital transformation is really about enabling new business models, enabling innovation through technology. That's pretty much a nutshell definition. And the primary goal of any transformation should be visibility across the supply chain. And the visibility could be anything from one order, right? A customer order starting off in an e-commerce channel. Maybe it gets changed somewhere down the line, and then it goes into your order orchestration system. It goes into your production schedule. You produce the product, and then you move it and you deliver and fulfill the customer's order. So the whole visibility end-to-end of an order is your order to cash process, and your end-to-end visibility of every raw material that comes into your organization, especially, being from Flow Beverages, we are a food company. So we need a high level of compliance with FDA and other regulations, and we need 100% traceability for across our raw materials, upstream and downstream from the supply chain. No worries. Any questions, any thoughts? How many of you here are in the process of transformation? Personal. Anything. Transformation is a good thing. So in the age of data deluge, right? So when again, coming back to our topic of decluttering the supply chain. So when you look at your entire technology footprint today in your organization. So we talked about suppliers, we talked about customers, we talked about internal processes for manufacturing and fulfillment. So you have a lot of applications, right? You have your CRM for customer management, your supplier relationship management, your main ERP, which is your foundational systems for inventory and for finance. And you have your PLM, your product lifecycle management. And you have, multiple other communication tools like your EDI, you have, your emails, you have your end user computing. So there is just a lot of technologies, right? So today we live in what is called, a digital obesity age. There's just too much of systems. And by what happens when there are too many systems is that you have to have integrations between multiple systems, and there's a high likelihood of data loss. So, but unfortunately, we are in a world where technology has changed the way we operate, right? I mean, 30 years ago, I'm dating myself, all my orders used to come in through faxes. Then it went to email, right? So if we didn't have technology, we wouldn't be in the world that we are in today. We would be more in this world, right? So there are essentially 3 flows of supply chain, right? That's a cute picture. All right. So there are three important flows in an organization. You have your physical flow, and then you have your your financial flow. And your financial flow could be anything from your bill of lading, your banker's credit documents when you're shipping internationally. You have your margin information. You have a lot of costing information that's part of your finance, and that should really dictate how who you are serving, which customer segments are giving you the most margins, who is actually marrying on to your strategy, right? If your strategy for a company, and for Flow today, our strategy is growth. And when you are in a growth mode, there needs to be a lot more investments. You need to invest in the consumer segments that's going to give you growth. Whereas if you are in the mode of profitability, then you're going to focus on consumer segments or channels that give you profits, which means you get a higher margin. So maybe, larger deals, bulk deals, that would be typically the way to go. So again, coming down to strategy, and this is where your information flow has to integrate both your physical and your financial flow. So essentially, you're enabling a whole organization to function more efficiently. So why should we, look at customer strategy? And here as well, I'll talk about our experience with Stellium. With my earlier organization, we embarked on this journey with multiple, technology stacks. We had so much of data loss. There were a lot of processes which were not even in our systems. For instance, customer returns, like when customers used to return our product, there were 650 return codes, reject codes, right? So, and it was very easy to game the system. So right before we even started the whole journey, we started off with cleaning our data. We reduced the rejection codes from 650 to 120, for instance. Worked on our forecasting methodology. Our tool was not really serving us a lot of, it wasn't really serving us well. So we said, okay, let's just do a pen and paper forecasting. Let's use the whole Twinter model, exponential smoothing, and let's get this going. So it was a lot of effort. Even before Stellium came, for about a year, we did like standardization, consolidation. So among the 18 DCs that we had roughly about 12 ways of slotting, right? So every DC had its own unique way of slotting. So let's whittled it down to 3 ways of slotting, right? So that was kind of our exercise right before the journey. And why strategy is really important, right? So you have three drivers of your supply chain strategy, and you can never optimize all three. You can optimize one very, very well. Maybe you can add the second driver, but you can never optimize all three. So the three drivers are really your service levels, your asset utilization, and your cost of capital. I just thought this slide was very interesting to kind of figure out where you want to fit in, right? So for a company like, say, a homogeneous product, say bottled water, for instance. So we have a very high cost of stock out. When I say cost of stock out, I mean when a customer is coming to the store, say for instance, coming to Walmart, where we sell our products, if our product is not on the shelf, right, they're going to buy another bottled water brand. And if they do like the other bottled water brand, then we are going to lose a customer right there, right? So there you go. You once a customer is lost, then it completely goes out of your customer lifetime value right there. So it's very important for us to always have a high stock situation where you're constantly monitoring the inventory on the shelves, and we are constantly fulfilling customer orders. We never want to have a situation where we are out of stock. So which means our inventory is pretty key for us. And we can actually, so our service level is something we are prioritizing on. And the second prioritization is asset utilization, only because we are a very capital intensive business. It's not cheap to build bottled water plants, especially with Tetra Pak and fully sustainable technology. So those were the two we preferred to, prioritize on. And the third angle was cost and capital, which obviously falls in the third priority. Now, if you are, if it was Apple or a very high value product, the asset utilization and cost of capital is going to be very high. So they would probably, go with cost and capital. I can't speak to what they do, but I would assume they would go with cost and capital, asset utilization, which means out of stock is not a big deal for them, right? So when there are no iPhone 13s left, they just take back orders because people are willing to wait. So every company has to have a different, and again, every product has a different strategy, right? And when we're talking about Apple here, so you have a strategy for iPhone, but maybe their iPads are not something that consumers are looking to buy like iPhones, and there is some level of you know um, substitution. So why the strategy is really important for decluttering your supply chain is that one of the one of the mistakes that typically happens is we use a one size fits all supply chain for every product in our company, right? And that one size fits all is what makes your technology and your digital stack very cluttered and very heavy, and causes digital obesity. So I'll give you an example, right? So for one of your product lines, say your phone lines or your high value product, it's going to be a premium product. You're pricing it higher than your competitors, and you need a certain level of forecasting accuracy for that product, right? But you may not need this. You need not have the same level of forecasting accuracy for a very homogeneous product. So think of a company like Procter and Gamble, or a CPG company where they sell premium products, medium products, homogeneous, and just and they are in different geographies. So the supply chain strategy, if you are able to silo it and have a very optimal strategy for every product line, you have to build your technology around it. So a lot of times it's about having a foundational platform like SAP, and then on top of that you customize for every supply chain. So it's really about product segmentation, customer segmentation, and then you marry the two with your supply chain strategy. And then you end with metrics and you drive the direction through metrics. So if you look at this metric, right? So you have the three most important metrics, and this is driven by your supply chain strategy, is your forecast accuracy, which means your demand planning is pretty key, and it sets the direction of growth for the company, followed by the total supply chain cost and your perfect order. Perfect order, in fact, is one of the metrics that we decided to focus on, only because we've decided that service levels and out of stock cost was too high for us, and we wanted to focus on perfect order rather than total supply chain cost, and that again would increase your forecast accuracy. So a typical way of how to use metrics. So if responsiveness is key, then you look at your forecast accuracy, your operational excellence, or your process excellence. It all depends on how your strategy dictates where you want to go. So with that said, just move on quickly to our digital roadmap creation, which we did with Stellium. So the first order of business, again, segmentation, cost to serve, strategy. You build your whole enterprise model, and then you come to your supply chain strategy. When you talk about your overall enterprise strategy and what actually connects your policies, when I talk about policies, it's like your replenishment policies, how much inventory on hand do you want to have, how much stock levels do you want to have. So those are all your supply chain strategies. And this is where your technology comes in to enable and meet those KPIs. So the supply chain strategy really fills the gap between the overall strategy and the operational policies, and then you build your operating model. So you're building capabilities for every customer segment, right? So that's where you don't have a one size fits all. And then you build your whole technology layer based on metrics and the whole utopian dream of having a control tower. And the control tower is only possible if you have 100% of all data clean with high level of integrity, quality, so that you can actually use that data to predict how you want to fulfill, what raw materials you want to use, and what customers you want to, what customer segments you want to penetrate into. So that said, moving on to a lot of animations here. I'll just end with best practices. So when we started off our engagement, there were, like I said, there was no standardization. There was a lot of data silos. Data was unclean. So you're talking about 100 years of data that's sitting in, old mainframes, right? We had, all kinds of softwares that was done over the years, over the centuries, I would say. And again, we picked Stellium because they asked a lot of questions and they were not afraid to, say what's good for us, right? A lot of times you need a vendor who can tell you the truth. So I found that that was a very good partnership we had. We cleaned out a lot of information, and when we started off our EWM blueprinting, it was really about dredging the past, looking under the rocks, finding out what systems we have, what data we have, and then building the whole blueprint to, to make full inventory visibility possible across our DCs and to our customers. So some best practices here is, design the best processes at beginning before you even think of technology. End-to-end data flow. So this is where data thinking comes into action. Even before we implement a system, a lot of times we don't know what data we want from the system. So any digital transformation or technology implementation should start with data thinking and should end with data thinking, because you need to know what information is going into your system, who's consuming the information, who's contributing to the information. And when you get high quality data out of your system, that's your business gold, right? You use that data to derive business insights and move your company forward. Then you look at standardization and master data governance. And why standardization before master data governance, right? So I talked about slotting. When you have 10 different types of slotting and replenishments, there is no point in building a master data which is going to have 1,000 fields. So for instance, when we started off with e-commerce development for a global retailer, #1 retailer in the world, which I just named a little bit ago, when they had product information coming in from suppliers for their stores, initially it was about 1,000 fields. And guess how many suppliers filled up those 1,000 fields? 0, right? And it was inaccurate, and most of the suppliers were in China. Firstly, they didn't understand a lot of the words that was being used in the supplier information portal. And because it was so many fields, they didn't have people to actually fill out those so many fields. So it kind of gave birth to a new segment in the industry, which is called content service providers. But anyway, if anyone wants to know more about that, please reach out to me. Then we went on with our technology implementation, and it really starts off with designing the whole system and seeing how the data is going to flow across, not just physical flows, but also financial flows. And as the more integrated they are, the better it is for your transformation. And then you do your reporting and analytics, right? And a lot of times people use it the same way. When you talk about reporting, it's about what really is happening, right? What is your business today? Who is getting what product? That's reporting. And reporting is really, you can make it rich by having fewer systems, right? Fewer systems, cleaner data. Because once you take this report data and you start analyzing them, you use different sort of modeling or machine learning, AI, then you're looking at why or how, right? So reporting is a what, and analytics is a how and a why. And with all these steps, we can innovate continuously and stay relevant. So I end my presentation here, but I just want to talk a little bit about Flow. So we are founded in Ontario, very proud to be a Canadian company, and started off from a family-owned business. Today we sell to about 20,000 retailers across the world. We have about 20 million customers. Very exciting times for our organization, and I'm looking forward to getting my innings started. So thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Sure. That's right. That's a brilliant question, Amit. So I actually come from the food industry. I've been in grocery retail and food for nearly 18 years. So the last 2 years was in industrial manufacturing. And one of the biggest differences is the level of compliance and traceability we need to have with systems. Because when it comes to food, you're under the constant watch of FDA and the Canadian and wherever you're selling. the regulatory compliance. So there is a mandate, a federal mandate, that you have to have complete end-to-end traceability for product recalls or audits and all such things, and you have to constantly be certified. So for instance, we have so many audits because we have about 20 plus certifications, including B Corp, organic, so on and so forth. That itself makes makes us very vigilant about what technology we are implementing and make sure that we are able to retrieve data when we want to. Second one is shelf life. The food is always going to be, it's going to expire, right? Unlike paint. So when you have shelf life, you want to make sure that it's an emotional connection. You want to make sure that none of your consumers are, impacted by expired products. So we actually are, doubly careful, and we make sure that even though our products expire in 2 years, we typically take it off 2-3 months even before they expire. Mostly it's, we donate a lot. Today, if you go to our website and buy a product, not today, it's going to start from next month, you'll see that we are donating for a carbon neutral, scheme for every order, right? And you have the ability to match. And that's all part of our, being carbon neutral before 2025. Thanks, Amit, for the question. Absolutely. That is a great question. So typically we calculate our inventory, holding stock, safety stock, up over and above your safety stock. We carry an excess inventory for some of these fast moving items. Now, in a non-expiration or a non-food organization, you can actually manufacture, just to cut down your manufacturing cost, you can actually manufacture some products in the lean months, right? When your factory is a little bit idle. But we can do that because we are in food and we cannot manufacture in the winter months. For us, seasonality is a big thing. Summer, water flies off the shelf, right? But that doesn't mean that you can manufacture in the winter months and hold on, because the moment you produce the water, the clock starts ticking. So I don't know your name again, sorry. Francis. As Francis mentioned, so inventory holding is a big deal, but more than inventory, we try to keep excess capacity at our plants, because holding inventory can be a double-edged sword. You lock up your working capital. B, you're going to run the risk of obsolescence and expiration. So to counter these two risks, we just have more than 50% capacity in all our manufacturing plants. That's our strategy. Thank you. Great question. Okay. So not as exciting as the beer game. By the way, I love the beer game. I always tell people, well, let's play the beer game. And, I went to school at MIT. So this has been something that we play all the time. And when people don't know what it is, they're like, oh, I'm going to get free beer. Anyway. See? Anyway, thank you so much. Please reach out if you have more questions. Okay, this is not going. All right. Here's my contact information, and please try our water. And if you have any more questions on digital or supply chain, IT, happy to have some more discussions. Thank you again. Thanks for inviting me, Stellium. Bye-bye.